Welcome, everyone, to today's Tech Talk series. My name is Eddie Ambler, and he's...
My name is Leo Alvarado.
All right, we're Exadata Database and Base Database Service Multi-Cloud PMs, and in today's Tech Talk series, we're going to be talking about how to organize and control the use of your cloud resources. We all have been given a great journey to take on, so let's have the discussion on how we can improve how our cloud resources are used. Today, we will discuss how to use the compartments and their child compartments to organize the cloud resources into a manageable group of structures. We'll discuss the IAM policy syntax so that you can understand how they can be written to provide the desired access levels to the cloud resources that you're going to give out. We'll also discuss how users and groups as a concept are given permissions, right? We'll review writing the policies so that you can provide users and groups just the right level of access to the application and cloud database service resources. And we'll wrap it up by demonstrating how to create users, groups, and the syntax through console demos. And we'll close it out with any open Q&A. So with that, let's begin our journey. The Oracle Cloud has a great portfolio of Oracle database cloud services. On the left side, you see our base database service, which offers enterprise and standard edition databases. It is a co-managed offering that is really good at servicing single instance to 2-node racks from one OCPU to more than 128 OCPUs, and all the way up to 80 terabytes of database storage. For those customers who are looking for a database platform that offers a little bit more scale, maybe a little bit more performance, they're able to also leverage the very same Oracle database that they run on-premise or they would run in our base database service in the our Exadata database service, which runs on our Exadata platform infrastructure. You get all the economies of scale and the cloud automation services. And for those customers who are looking maybe for a fully managed service, we offer our autonomous database, which actually comes in a dedicated model or a shared model that allows you to deploy a pay-for-use model where you're only paying for the resources you need. Now, let's look at what organizing and controlling the use of your cloud resources can look like. There's typically 3 areas that we could probably break this down. So we're going to focus on organizing the cloud resources, controlling who has access to these resources, and then understanding what resources are being used, and what our current security postures are within our cloud. So we'll make sure that you kind of walk away from this conversation not only understanding what cloud resources are, how you can control them, how you can monitor them, and make sure that you're delivering a cost-efficient and secure cloud. The first thing that you should probably understand is the Oracle Cloud landscape. Oracle has been investing heavily in ensuring that it provides cloud resources where you need them, right? Getting the customer data closer to the customer. And as you can see from this map here, Oracle has got cloud data centers across the world. They're deployed in such a manner that you can deploy your cloud resources respecting any data residency requirements that might be there, giving you the ability to deploy a maximum availability architecture. That way you have not only local HA, but DRHA architectures available. So the cloud strategy that Oracle is deploying truly is an encompassing strategy that not only provides cloud services for for Oracle application, but custom applications, and it enables multi-cloud. So you can see that we have identified on our map areas where we have deployed Microsoft interconnected data centers ready for that engagement. This kind of collaboration in the industry where Oracle is leading now on its multi-cloud initiatives will continue to grow across other service providers, but just wanted to give you a quick bird's eye view of the fact that Oracle Cloud landscape investment is worldwide and continuing to grow. OCI, also provides a complete set of cloud database services. The Oracle Cloud is not just for Oracle applications, but for all applications, small or large, custom or Oracle SaaS applications. On the left side, you can see that the services that we offer can be geared for developer and DevOps. We offer low-code services, developer tooling, Terraform access, so that you can deliver things, infrastructure as a code. At the application tier, we're offering modern technologies such as serverless, integration APIs. And of course, we would continue to offer our enterprise SaaS offerings there. The ability to do analytics, right, is embedded and integrated into many of our SaaS services. It's offered as a cloud edge service as well, not only for you to be able to perform analytics against cloud data, but data wherever it might be, right? On-premise data that's in third-party clouds or in the Oracle Cloud. On the right side, we have our governance and security service offerings. So, no cloud can be complete without the appropriate amount of governance, security, and the ability to monitor and react using things like our observability services. Along the bottom, like you would expect in any good cloud, we have infrastructure, right? So you have a complete access to infrastructure, whether it's compute, containers, custom OSs, custom images, storage, or networking. And to round it out, dead center, you see our data management. The Oracle Cloud Services offers you a choice of database solutions that you can use in this layer. We talked about our base database service, our Exadata database service, and your choice of autonomous database services. That way, you're choosing just the right service that you need to meet your business requirements. Which brings us into users and groups, right? Getting an understanding of how Oracle resources are provided and how you get access. So, we have the concept of users that are grouped together by roles or by departments. And we identify those users using OCI's IAM services, which can be local users or they can be federated users, right? Many of our customers have LDAPs that they've been using on premise. Often, it's Microsoft Active Directory, but our cloud is very complete and offers federated identity that can use Oracle's IDCS as the source, your on-premise identity as a source, or federated identity to third party as the source as well. So, users can be individual employees or systems that you need to use your resources. Your users might launch instances. They might manage storage. They might work with different elements, in the network or different database services. We collect those users into groups that are performing similar functions, need similar types of access, so that when we give out permissions, you give permissions to the groups and all the members of those groups then inherit the permissions. Then there's the last concept of dynamic groups. So the dynamic groups allow us to create a collection of instances and apply permissions to those instances. What that does then is, if many groups are going to use a type of resource, you don't have to duplicate the effort of permissions. You give the permissions to the instance. If a group has the use permission on that resource type, then they will inherit the permissions that are allocated to the instance. So that's a really cool thing with dynamic groups. Really helps us to be streamlined in how we give out permissions. So as we continue the conversation, just a couple more terms that we kind of just need to really talk about to get an understanding of how we are going to organize things, right? And the first one is compartment. What do we mean by compartment? A compartment is a collection of related resources, right? That can be accessed only by groups that have been given permissions. And you'll get a view when we go over the design patterns of how these words go together. So compartments help us to organize and control access to the resources. They help us to gain permissions via policies. So the policies are the instrument that we're going to review in upcoming slides that give the desired level of permissions to the resources that you stick in that compartment. So let's take a look at this slide. So you remembered we talked about the Oracle landscape and how Oracle had data centers across the world, right? So the cloud is divided into regions, as you can see, as you go across the world, so that you have geographic separation of resources. So one of the things you can do with a compartment is I can create a compartment that is specific, for example, to US East, right? And so I can only create, if the permissions I have are only to this compartment, then I can only create things in the US East region. But I could just as easily have another compartment that actually gives me permissions across regions. In this example, the one to the upper right, you can see that I have permissions not only to UK South, but also to Japan East. So as you can see, compartments, the takeaway is that compartments can go across regions. So you can be very tailored as to, not only what resources someone can use, but where they can deploy those resources as well, right? So you can be, give access to all the regions that are available to your tenancy, or you can give out very tailored access to very specific compartments, regions via the compartments. So we'll continue to drill in onto the relationship of compartments and users and groups as we go. But this is the first level of organization that you can start to map out. So sub-compartments, right? At this point, you're able to divide your resources, not just by regions, but also by the operational model, right? Maybe you want to divide your resources into sub-compartments by SDLC, meaning, I'm going to have a compartment that's going to hold production resources, and I'm going to have a different sub-compartment that is going to hold my non-production resources, right? Because maybe from an organization's point of view, I have got people who are production DBAs and other people who are non-production DBAs, right? Or maybe you are going to do it by role, where you have applications, a group of app developers, a group of database developers. Another common area where you see people breaking compartments and sub-compartments is dividing resources by departments. I want to take my cloud resources and I want to give a certain set of resources to the HR department, to the finance department, right? To the data warehousing department. So, and the reason I might want to do that is each one of those departments might have their own IT staff and their own budget that they want to manage. So the concept of compartments not only, again, can lead us to organizing resources geographically, but organizing resources based on a combination of organizational needs, right? By SDLC, by departments, by role. An example in the middle of the screen says we created a network compartment, and we put resources that you would expect, maybe a network admin group to be able to do what? Create networks, right? Manage load balancers. Whereas you might have a storage admin group, and they are responsible for managing cloud storage elements. So we would put block storage, file storage, object storage. So all of the things that you would, the resources that that group would need to manage, we would make available in that compartment and give them permissions on it. And we'll drill into different types of permissions that you can vary for different types of groups as we continue to drill into the conversation. So, that's really, the beginning of the organizing. So I'm going to shift the conversation just a little bit more and talk about control, right? How resources are used. We've kind of figured out how to organize it a little bit. Now let's talk about how they're used. So the first thing that we should talk about are the concept of service limits. When you sign up for your Oracle tenancy, one of the things that happens is your tenancy, which is the top level allocation, it comes with a set of service limits that are usually soft limits upon the amount of resources that you are allocated to use within your organization. So for example, your tenancy might be limited to only deploying 5 Vault services. And so as you hand out your resources, right, and across your groups, whenever the 5 vaults that are deployed across your compartments, then your tenancy limit is reached, and you would then have to request an increase. So as service limits are usually soft, and there is a process to increase them. But what this does is it puts the guidelines and guardrails so that the consumers downstream of your services, right, don't just run away and create services without you being in control of what those are. And we're going to drill into a deeper level of limits here in a minute. But the main thing to take away here is that your tenancy is your top level control that the administrator has, right? It sets the limits and quotas for your resources, and you can monitor those in the console and make the request for increases whenever you are required. So let's talk about quotas, which is a very similar thing, but quotas, right, they are applied to the user groups there. So quotas control how resources are consumed, letting you allocate resources to a project, or like I said, to a department, right? So you can determine how many OCPUs a project can use, a department can use, how many database instances a project can spin up, so your total, out of the tenancy's total allocation entitlement, you can take a portion of it and give it out to a compartment as a quota. Okay. Another reason that you might want to give quota out is, maybe there's a resource that has a high cost value associated to it, and you want to make sure that only qualified people deploy it, right? So or that they don't abuse that particular resource type. So you could be very specific as to which group compartments will be able to deploy that resource, and be very specific as to how much of that particular resource could be deployed in a compartment. So again, restricting the total resource allocation, and just like you can give a quota on a resource, you can disable quota on a service as well. So again, similar to service limits, but service limits are set by Oracle at the tenancy level, and compartment quotas are set by the administrators. So let's take a look at how this all comes together, right? So at the very top, again, you have your OCI Identity Access Management System, which allows us to authenticate who you are, right? Identifies who is making the requests. Is it a group? Is it an instance, right? We've already had the discussion that users, right, are mapped to groups. And we talked about instances, right, and how they're used with dynamic groups, right? So then as we look to the right of the diagram, you see something new, permissions. What is requested by the identity, right? How do I determine if a user should be able to create something, update something, delete something, insert new data, right? All of the typical CRUD operations that you would expect, those are delivered through policies. Okay, and we'll talk about the policy and the policy syntax so that you can see how fine-grained. You can be very fine-grained in your policy to determine exactly who can access it, where they can access it, and exactly what they can do, whence they can access it, and any number of conditions that you need to apply so that you're giving just the right access under the desired business requirements. So again, the policies are applied to compartments, and resources are made available to compartments. We talked about all the different kinds of resources that might go into a compartment and how you can have compartments that are geared towards administrative roles that you're going to deploy, or to application projects which you're going to build, or to administrative roles. Just kind of depends on organizationally how you want to build your compartments. The one thing that I would say is, try to limit the compartments as you build them out, right? You don't want to have compartments that are at a finer grain than your organizational structures typically. Some of the things that come out of your compartments are reporting on cost utilization and budgeting, which we'll talk about. Here is a great diagram that starts to really break down organizing things by SDLC. For those who might not know, SDLC is the software development lifecycle, right? Things start in development and they progress to tests, then they progress to UAT, into performance testing, and then they go into production, right? And so each one of those areas could have different administrators that are administering. They could have different budgets that are paying for those resources. So for those reasons, or they might just have different compliance requirements. So for those reasons, you would organize your compartments to meet the business requirements. For this example, we had a requirement to take our cloud resources and break them down into production and non-production. So we created a non-production compartment and we created a production compartments. Underneath that, we had folks in the organization that were responsible for deploying and managing databases, and we had developers who were responsible for deploying and developing applications. So inside of those sub-compartments, we actually got to be very granular as to which resources. So for the database compartments, we made things available like the database family set of resources, where for the application compartments, we did things like providing load balancers, right? Providing file storage, which is shared storage that the application servers would use. So I could tailor the very specific types of resources that made sense for those groups to be able to do their jobs. And on that word, groups, what you can walk away from is knowing that you can have multiple groups having access to a compartment, but having very different permissions. So for example, I could have my apps group be able to have use permissions, right? Which gives them the ability to see what we're building or what we have available in the database compartments, but not create. Whereas the DBA group would have full management capabilities to create, update, delete, destroy, right? Everything in the database compartment, and you could flip the access methodologies between the two groups on the application compartment. So not only are you able to divide it, but you're also able to then, at the group level, apply very specific permissions to group members once they touch the compartment as to what they can or can't do.
Yeah, then when you when you bring in automation here, Eddie, if they organize this way, like by software development lifecycle, the time that you do automation, it will be easier for you to automate the provisioning with standardized versions. Depends on the environments. Like you have a standardized version of your app and database for non-prod, then you also have a different set of versions for your prod. So you can easily bring in automation with governance by just utilizing compartments, organizing it by their software development lifecycle.
Absolutely, right. We can take our Terraform scripts, right, and use the things that we talked about in our some of our other tech talks, like, right, how do we, deliver automated stacks across the SDLC. This is a great example where we would take that kind of knowledge to discover, for example, development environment, right? That's in our compartment, or the development environment that is grouped in our project, and take it from non-prod and have it deployed in an automated fashion in our production compartment. So very, very great point, Leo. Absolutely. Continuing not only to use cloud administrative automation, but using automation to promote code throughout the development lifecycle. So let's talk about a different view. What if I don't want to divide and organize on SDLC? Maybe I'm in an organization that has a very strong finance group that, they own their data, they own their budget, and they want the freedom to be able to deploy, manage, and run their business, separate from maybe the mainline IT. And that's not a very uncommon item, as you see. But this is another viewpoint that you could use as we're thinking of how we can use compartments, right? Instead of dividing by SDLC, we could say, hey, we're going to make a compartment for finance. We're going to make a compartment for HR. We're going to make a compartment for sales. Now, how do we get permissions to compartments? Anybody remember? For those of you who are saying policies, you're exactly right, right? We apply policies to compartments to determine what permissions are going to be available. We also can apply policies to groups, right? Because different groups can have different permissions on this very same compartment. And inside the compartments, what we do is we allocate resources, but we have the opportunity to subdivide with sub-compartments, right? So the finance compartment on the far left, if you come down, you'll notice that there's another compartment, a child compartment under it called database compartment. And there is also the application compartment. So the difference here is the finance team would use its own administrators to actually administer the database and application compartments. But in HR, guess what? They have, again, their own separate DBA and development teams. So so as your organization is maybe grouped by departments with their own IT resources in each department, this model here would allow you to scale in that direction.
Hey Eddie, there's a there's a question in the chat. So can they also do hybrid? Meaning I'll organize it SDLC and by departments.
That's a great question. So the answer is absolutely yes, right? So the ability to create sub-compartments, right, allows us to start at, for example, production as our top compartment. And I could have made a sub-compartment of finance. And then I could have had another sub-compartment of database and application. So Absolutely. The number of layers that you can put into your organization, right? You can tailor it to exactly what your company profile looks like, so that your resources are organized by how your organization's technical resources and funding models are organized.
And your resources can also be moved to different compartments, right? So we have that ability as well in OCI.
That's a great question, and the answer to that is yes. As we know, no organization is static, right? So we have the opportunity to move resources to where they're required. Let's say that the sales group, for whatever reason, has been merged with the finance groups, then not a problem. We could actually collapse those compartments into one. We can rename the compartments. We can move the resources from the finance compartment to sales. So yeah, that flexibility to be able to rename and reorganize resources is absolutely a feature function that is available to you in the Oracle Cloud. So very elastic in its nature. So great question. So I think maybe we're ready to drill in on that hammer just a little bit more. What do you think, Leo? Are you ready to talk about policies?
Yeah, let's talk about IAM policies. Okay, now we have seen the compartments, users, and groups. Now it's time for us to drill into what's an IAM policy. So the policy specifies who can access to what and how. So your who pertains to your users and groups. The what refers to your cloud resources on your tenancy, and the how refers to the actions that vary depending on the cloud resource. So simply, a policy allows you to give a group to work on certain ways with specific types of resources on the compartment level. Next slide.
I think that this is a great way to lead into this. All right, let's talk about the syntax, Leo. Walk them through this a little bit.
Yeah. So let's see and review how do we write the policy syntax for us to provide users and groups the right level access to the cloud resources, such as their applications and cloud database services. So here you can see the first line is allow subject. So the subject could be your created group. And then to a verb. So if you look into the column, the first column here, so you'll see here all the listed verbs. So this is the how. So this is how you interact with your cloud resources, and you'll see the different type of access based on the verb that you put into your syntax. So example is a read can give you inspect, and then one good example is that ability for you to list down all for example VM clusters, databases, application servers. But you also have the verb of use, which gives you the type of access of read plus the ability to work or interact with the cloud resource, excluding the create or delete. So if you need the create or delete, there's also a verb for that, which is the manage, which gives you all the permission for the resource. So that is the verb. Now the blue one allows subject to verb resource type. So the resource type at the right. So if you looked into the columns in OCI IAM policy, so we have this pre-built aggregate resource types, or you can call it as the family or parent types of different resources. So for example, if you're working with cloud database services, so you have a aggregated resource type of database family. But you can also have a fine-grained individual resource type kind of a policy. Like, for example, in database family, if you're specific into Exadata database service, you have a specific resource types for your DB nodes, DB homes, VM clusters. Then after the resource type, so I've already allowed my subject to do to my resource type. And then the next is in location. So the location, you can use a compartment or for the entire tenancy. Now, in the event that you want to make it granular, you can also add the work clause for you to add a fine-grained conditions on how you will be interacting to your cloud resource. So let's take this example. So the request here is allow members. I have a DBA admin group to create databases in the tenancy. So the syntax for that is allow subject, which is my group DBA admins, to verb, which is manage, because I need to have the create access, and then resource type will be database family in the location of my entire tenancy. So in OCI IAM policies, you can mix and match the different verbs with the different resource types.
Wow, hey, that actually breaks down really well. So hopefully the takeaway is that this reads like really simple English, right?
Yes.
I read that and like I can tell exactly what it says. Allow a group of DB admins to manage database family and tenancy. I love it. So again, you know, this remember to come back to this slide to get your bearings. But you can be very detailed, similar to SQL language that you're used to probably writing. So let's take a look at a little bit more on go through some more examples of the policy examples. Leo, can you walk us through again? You know, just maybe a couple more examples here.
Yep. So here you can see you have a different set of users: Alex, Cherry, Fred, Jenna, and so on. And then you have a different groups. So you get administrator group. You also have the network admins group. You got a group named A admins, B admins, with the group of A users and B users. And also you got different compartments specific to your networks, project A and project B. Now on the right, you'll see some examples that shows you different verbs or interactions. So at the top, you'll see these are managing. So you use the verb manage for the resource type of all resources. Another resource type like virtual network family, which are VCNs and components. And then you also have the instance family, which refers to your compute. So mostly for your application servers. I wanted to highlight here the line 7 and 8, in which it uses the where clause. Like it tells me like I wanted to allow group A admins to manage users in tenancy where target group that name equals A user. So this shows you that you can even use the where, and this two syntax, this 7 and 8, line number 7 and 8 will like allow group A admin, which is here at the diagram, you see it's Jorge, it's part of the A admin, to manage groups in tenancy where target that group name is A users. So A users, in which that user is Barney. So if you looked into this policy, it's again, as Eddie's mentioned, it's just straight English. So Jorge will get the ability to create, update, and delete users, as well as their credentials, Barney's credentials, and he will also have the ability to manage the membership of the group. So that is so easy for you to create a policy, and everything will be done in the console. So you also have a policy builder. So later on in the demo, we'll show you those pre-built templates that you can use on the policies.
Hey, Leo, can you walk us through one more the dynamic groups. Walk us through this example here. So that was pretty good. I think the team's getting an idea of how the syntax flows, right? But can you walk us through dynamic groups once more?
Okay, so here's an example of working with a dynamic groups, which your a resource or an instance can act as the principal actors for your group. So the task here is just for me to allow the dynamic group name front end. So meaning these are all the instances group to a named front end to use the load balancer in a specific compartment for my project A. So the syntax is pretty simple. It's just allow dynamic group, the name of the group, which is front end, to verb, which is use, resource type is load balancer, in location, the compartment of project A.
Wow. I mean, that makes it very easy. So again, we're giving you dynamic control. So instead of having to give permissions to each and every load balancer, I literally can create a collection of load balancers, label them in a group called front end, and as long as my users are in a group that has use permission on that resource type, in this case load balancer, then they would have permissions they would inherit the permissions to move forward. So that's very good. Thanks for that.
Okay. Yeah. So now let's move to look into another method of giving access. So do you want to give some background on this?
Sure. So, we've been talking about how to give permissions and control, but the bucket, or I could say the object storage, is usually where people in the cloud will put information that they might want to share. You might have a collection of pictures or a collection of documents, and that would go into an object bucket, right? That bucket can be private or it can be public, and you can share access to those resources out to folks who may not be users of the cloud using your credentials. We use a particular object called a predefined access request URL, pre-authenticated request URL. And this way you get a link that you can share to your user, and they can see what you have in your object storage in the cloud, or they can see a very specific file. So you can be very specific as to giving access to a very singular object or a collection of objects. So a little bit different way of permissions, but I kind of wanted to put it out here because, we always say that, users don't get direct permissions. We apply the permissions via policies to the instances and groups. But this is just an example of how you can, share out access to a cloud service to a very specific item that you had there. So just wanted you guys to be aware of that access methodology. And again, it's called a pre-authenticated request.
Yeah. So one good practice is, of course, always to assess the business requirements for that pre-authenticated requests on that object. Like they need to somehow carefully manage the distribution of the URL.
So Leo, are you maybe saying that I shouldn't create a public bucket that hosts my confidential information? That kind of would be bad, huh?
Yeah, but in the buckets, you also have a tick box there that you can just simply make the bucket as private. And if you make it private, you can still make use of pre-authenticated requests for your objects.
Awesome. All right, well, let's move to the last category, which is understanding what we're spending, evaluating our security posture, and just kind of planning for the spend.
Okay, let's move to OCI Budget Planning. So did you know that you have a tool in OCI that helps you to monitor your spend? So it's called OCI budgets. So you can you can create a budget for a certain scope. So it could be a specific compartment. So you can set a threshold for that budget, and then you can also define customized alerts that get sent out. So whenever that budget threshold gets hit, then you'll get a notification. So this is very useful in terms of doing also cost tracking across different compartments, across different departments.
So this seems really cool. So one of the use cases is maybe we took the design model that we were going to break our compartments into departments.
Yes.
So departments have certain budgets. So I could actually, if I understood you right, create a budget forecast for each department and alert when I am starting to come up on that, so that I would know, hey, I need to monitor my spend more closely. I might need to shut down resources or just evaluate, if I'm going to miss my budget forecast.
Yep, that is true. So remember the design pattern that we have, that we organize the resources per department.
Mm-hmm.
So aside from that, aside from giving quotas, they can also set a budget for that compartment, and they can even create a rule that can notify them for those customized budget alerts.
Oh, that's even awesome. So I don't have to keep coming to the dashboard to check on it. Literally, the system can notify me when I'm approaching one of my my spending limits. That's pretty awesome. All right. So what about, after I've set up the budget, what other tools can we use to make sure that we are staying on top of our cost and making sure that our systems are safe, right?
Yeah. Yes, in OCI, you also have a tool called Cloud Advisor. So the Cloud Advisor helps you review and monitor and provide recommendation for cost savings, as well as help you understand and evaluate your security posture improvements. So your Cloud Advisor, Cloud Advisor finds those potential inefficiencies in your tenancies and offers you a guided solutions that explains how to address them. So if you look into this sample dashboard, so it shows you some recommendations about your overall spend, which is tied to your cost management. And it also gives you a view to evaluate your security posture, which is related to what we have covered, like the way you implement your IAM policies, as well as setting up other security tools available in cloud. Like there's a built-in cloud guard that helps you recommend and check those security vulnerabilities and give you recommendations on how you can address them.
Awesome. Yeah, this is a very good tool to be aware of. And again, it just helps to bring home the fact that I can organize things, I can set a budget for those things, and I can monitor those things. And the system's smart enough to continue to give me positive recommendations how I can just be the most efficient steward of cloud services, bringing the best cost savings to my organization. So let's go ahead, Leo, and look at creating the compartment using the console.
Okay, so for creating compartments, so this demo is for creating the hybrid, which is the based on software development lifecycle and by departments. So on your OCI console, so you have your identity and security, and you can just simply click on compartments. So we have here a My Compartment demo in which we're going to create a sub-compartment or child compartment for our SDLC. So first is for our production. We just give it the description, then click create. So after we have created our production, we can also create another environment, which is for our non-prod. And you see now we have two compartments for SDLC. And then we go into one of the environments, like we click on production. And this time we try to create sub-compartments based on our application or department specific. So sample is one compartment for finance, and then another compartment for your HR, and then another compartment for your sales. And after we have created those three departments, you can even do a hybrid. Like inside my finance, that's where I can define a resource specific compartment. Like I can have a database compartment for my finance. I can also create an application compartment for my finance compartment. So this is just the application of the hybrid design that we just have covered. So either organizing your resources using software development lifecycle by departments, or even combination of both.
Leo, that was an amazing demo. Hopefully what people walk away from here is the simplicity of how this was all done. Notice we didn't have to go learn a whole bunch of syntax and become network engineers and security engineers. The automation, the cloud automation, made it a very simple English-like flow. You simply mapped out the strategy that you wanted to do, and the workflow was able to interpret that that need and deploy those compartments for you. So let's talk about the other half, right? So this is the compartment half. What about, how hard or how easy is it to create the policies that give us permissions?
Okay, so for the policies, so on your OCI console, you have the identity and security, then just go to policies. So here in the demo, we would like to highlight that creating a policy, you have a policy builder. So my task, or the task is, I wanted to grant access to I have a group. It's a database admin group to manage all my Exadata database service resources. So in the policy builder, there are pre-built use cases. Like I can choose one for database management, and there are sample policy templates here. Like all I want is to let the admin manage the DB system or Exadata instances. And then I just need to select the group, and then it will generate me the syntax. So if you look into the policy statements, so that's the actual syntax that I need to have in order for me to allow group, my demo admin, to manage database family, which is my resource type, in my compartment, my demo. Simple as that. So now you have created the policy for your DB admin. If you wanted to implement and create policies for the departments, so you can, same thing, you just need to go to the console, in the identity and security. So go to policies. So this time we will be granting access to the admins of the departments. So the ask here is very simple. It's like, let the finance group admin manage their own databases inside that finance compartment. So same thing, I choose database management template, and then I choose the policy template of let them manage all the DB on that compartment. So I just need to select the group, which I have created a my demo fin, which is my admin finance group, and then the policies has been generated, and just I click on create. So the rest will be the same, but this time is just creating policies for the other departments. So that's how easy it is for you to create a policy. So you have a policy builder that you can just pick from the pre-built templates, depends on the resource type.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. Well, this brings us to the most important part here, is just to make sure that we have covered any outstanding questions. Okay, well, let's talk about that.
Yeah, because we have all the demos that you've seen, even the tech talks and other tech talks related to this topic, we are uploading it to our external Slack public workspace. So that's where we uploaded all our get started guides. So you see a dedicated channel for get started guides, how-tos, and you'll also have a dedicated channel for tech talk series of even sharing new technical blogs. And if you want to find out about more collaterals, then you can also visit the www.oracle.com/database and also the oracle.com/Exadata. Which brings me to the invite. So if join us, join a discussion about cloud database services. So me, Eddie, and Tammy, we're happy to meet you there. So here's the join link. So all you need to do is to click on the join link, logged into your email using your log into Slack using your email account, and then set up your 2FA, and then that's it. So welcome to our workspace.
Wow, what a great session. Time went really fast, but it's time for us to say see you later till next time. My name is Eddie Ambler, and he is...
And my name is Leo Alvarado.
All right, till next time, y'all have a great afternoon.